This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And joining me right now is Marshall Gunter. He is the CEO of Datametrex. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is DM on the TSX venture. Marshall, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Robert. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you on. I want to jump right in here because Datametrex came across my radar because the company, which is traditionally a tech-focused firm, since the COVID-19 outbreak, has been working to secure and sell COVID-19 testing kits. So can you tell us a little bit about how this all came about?
Sure. So this was a bit of a fluke for us, but it's working. So we traditionally do, artificial intelligence work and research for, the Canadian government, various agencies there, including defense research. We do a lot of work with, the American government, including like the United States Air Force, Office of Naval, the ONR, Office of Naval Research. And we have a large penetration actually into the South Korean market with companies like Latte, which is a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate in South Korea. And, we have worked with like a lot of pharmaceutical firms and stuff over there. So when all the COVID stuff came down, we were approached by an employee in the embassy, the Canadian embassy in Seoul, South Korea, with, a list of things that they were having problems procuring for help with the pandemic. And so they sent us a list. It was mostly like PPE and stuff, but test kits were on it. And they said, look, we're having a lot of trouble making the right connections here. And we know you guys, work with these people on a daily basis. Can you help us? And, they knew they could come to us because of, the nature of we do some classified work for them and such. And so, all the ability to speak to us was already in place. There were no channels to go through or approvals or any of that type of stuff. So we took a look at it and said, you know what, it's out of our wheelhouse, but we'll give it a shot. So, a week later, we had procured the ability to export test kits and what's called UTM, which is the swabs and sanitary bottles necessary to do it. And ever since then, we've been, exporting these from South Korea to, both in Canada and worldwide. So we didn't ask for the opportunity, but when it came out, we certainly grabbed it.
Got it. So how does selling COVID-19 testing kits really fit into your overall strategy for Datametrex now moving forward?
Well, right now it's just an additional revenue stream, and it's a pretty significant one for us. We've just in the past few weeks, we've secured over $1.5 million in revenue just from the kits alone. And just to put that in perspective, last year, as a company, Datametrex did about 3.6 million in revenue on the AI business. In a few weeks, talking about 1.5 million additional revenue. That's like 40% of what we did all last year, and we did it within, a month. And just, to put a little more context around this, the deals, that we're doing, and you can see them in the press releases that have gone out. All these deals are like pilot projects. So we're dealing with, really, really large companies with worldwide presence. Like you'll see some press releases where we've deployed into, say, Africa and stuff, in addition to inside Canada. These companies, they're not going to jump in for, $10 million of COVID tests that they're unfamiliar with, right? That they don't know if they're going to work, they don't know how to do it. And in a lot of cases, they have no idea even how to conduct testing. So there's an education process involved too. What they have done is, and we're seeing this, is they're jumping in, with $500,000. Say, okay, let's do a pilot, $500,000, see what happens. And as these progress, they expand. And not only do they expand, these are reorder situations. So as long as the COVID virus is around, we're going to be continuing to fill these orders and being, getting locked in as a vendor of choice with these companies. So for now, it's a significant revenue builder that we're going to use to bolster the AI business and put us in a position to, expand the company even more aggressively moving forward.
So one last quick follow-up on all this, because I'm sure some people might be thinking to themselves, okay, you were able to procure these testing kits, from where? and also, what kind of tests are they as well?
Sure. Okay, so we got them from South Korea. We currently work with 4 of the 8 major manufacturers in South Korea. And again, it's because of, the deep have there with the pharmaceutical companies
Sorry, you cut out real quick. So the deep what?
background.
Gotcha. Okay.
We have working with the companies in South Korea. In fact, our expansion into the Korean market was one of our major revenue drivers over the past year and a half. So that's where they come from. Now, we have 2 sets of kits. We have what are called PCR kits, and these are like the Cadillac of the kits. And now they're all like nasal and oral swabs that you take. But the kits we have are the ones that South Korea has used to such great effect. Like there's been no country on earth has better than South Korea. And the reason is they have the most effective technology. Like the kits that we have, one of them is that 20-minute kits that you see uh, coming out of South Korea. Like you see them using in the drive-throughs, right? You drive through, you get your swab, 25, 30 minutes later, there's a text that goes out, boom, you've got your answer, you're done. Or they use this same style kit in their ports of call. So if you fly into South Korea currently, everybody that goes into the country has to get a test. And they're able to do that because they've got these kits that are 20-minute PCR kits that are, their detection rates are 99.9% effective. And they also are able to detect what's called asymptomatic carriers, right? So people that have the virus that don't show any symptoms at all. There would be no way to detect this with like, a thermometer or a temperature or even a questionnaire or even an antibody kit, right? You can't do it. The antibodies aren't produced until you show symptoms. So, but with these kits, the South Koreans test an entire airplane in an hour and then they're off and running. So these are the types of technologies that we're able to procure and deploy. Some of the other kits a little bit slower. They're more suited for like batch situations. So, but they're still fast. They're like 90 minutes. Whereas like here in Canada, and I can't speak to, areas in the United States, I no longer live there, but in some cases we're seeing you go in for a test, you don't get your results for like 8 days. Well, I mean, you're either going to be in the hospital or you're almost finished, by this point in time. It's kind of useless. You
Right.
might as well have just stayed in quarantine, but with this type of tech, we're able to get it. And another thing that we're able to get right now is, and this one's really cool, is we've got the first one coming out of Korea is a home test kit. And this is going already approved in Korea. It's going to be, we're going to send it for approval at Health Canada. We're going to send it for approval at the FDA. And this thing goes through, you're going to be able to do this and do it yourself. Now this could be, revolutionary at this stage. If you can get these things into people's hands, there's no more lineups, there's no more there's no more this. You can go get the kit, you can do the test, and you can find out with really good accuracy whether or not it's going to work. But right now, just to be clear, we have kits that cover, Health Canada approved. We have FDA approved kits as of last week. So these are for a lot of our companies that we're working with have facilities in the United States and then been asking us, how do we cover those? And so, well, we've got the kits now, so we're working on that. We have kits that are CE stamped. That means that for the European Union, and that also covers a lot of Africa, South America, et cetera. So we've got, we can cover just about the entire planet. And the companies we're working with, they do cover the entire planet. So that's why they're asking for this stuff. And, just to come back to it, due to the speed and accuracy of the tech we've got, that's why there's such a great reception for it.
Look, everyone's cheering for you. We want to get as many test kits out there so that we can kind of go back to some kind of new normal, or at least until there's a vaccine as soon as possible. So, I mean, look, since you took over as CEO in October 2019, I mean, so much has really changed for the company. Not only some of the plans that you had coming in, but now from March on, it's been very much a lot of focus on testing kits. So can you describe a little bit more for my audience about what you've done since taking the helm and really how that's fit your overall vision for Datametrex?
Sure, absolutely. So if you look at Datametrex traditionally, like before I was here, they took a couple big hits in the past. One of them was in cryptocurrency and blockchain, which were very hot at the time, but a lot of people got burned on those technologies as they emerged, and they kind of flopped in a lot of sectors. Datametrics was on board with that. So when I came in, one of the things I was looking at is, what have we done historically that didn't work, quite honestly? And, what do we have? What are our assets? Well, when I took a look around, there's a company, and this is the company that I was sitting with before all this, called Nexology. And this is the artificial intelligence company that already at the time had a client list like the DRDC, which is Defense Research in Canada. It's the Canadian equivalent of DARPA. Um, Health Canada, the US Air Force, OSINT in Canada, which is open source intelligence, working with NATO on all kinds of different projects over the last 5 years. This clientele that was just amazing. And they've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now. And they're producing real revenue and in the black in most cases as a single entity, not as part of Datametrics as a holding cell, right? So when I took a look at that, I said, you know what? Let's get rid of these things that we know we're no good at, and we're going to double down on the AI because it's working. It's generating revenue. So in some cases we're making profits off this. If we put our efforts here, and we can make this work. And so we did put our efforts there, and we put all of our marketing behind it, and we put, all of the company efforts, got rid of what wasn't working, skinnied everything up, cut the burnout, and then went to town. So, from there, we started signing some contracts. Like we got a contract right after that. It's a little over $1 million with what's called ideas in Canada. And this is, government research contracts and such. But the beauty about it is when you go in with one of these contracts, at least in Canada, you do the work for the government, but then you get to keep the IP. So the IP is yours and you can continue to resell it. So it basically pays your R&D cost, which is excellent, which is the highest cost I have in an AI company, you know? So we doubled down on that. We nailed a few more contracts. We got moved up to another bidding level by the Canadian government because of how well we did that work. So once we focused on it, we were able to then accelerate the rate of growth and how well we were doing it. So instead of bidding on, $1 to $2 million, uh, what's called RFPs, which is just requests by the government, we're now in another level in the Canadian bidding system called ITB. Now this allows us to bid on, contracts that are tens of millions of dollars. And right, we can't service 40 $50 million contract right now at our current staffing. Like I couldn't put out $40 million worth of work, but what we are doing is we're co-bidding on these with larger firms. For instance, we're in the middle of a co-bid on a $40 million follow-up to the 1.1 and change million dollar project we're working on now, but we're co-bidding with MDA. This is a very large aerospace company in Canada. They build Canadarm, the big arm on the International Space Station, right? We're in a co-bid with them. We're talking to some other big companies about co-bidding in this space. And so by concentrating on that, it really started to turn things around. As soon as we got that turned around, got all the cruft out, burn, everything's working. Then COVID came up, and then bang, now we've got an additional revenue stream that's coming in. And that, is just going to add to the bottom line. But the other thing we did is we took a look at our tech, right? So that's the government side. We took a look at our tech and we said, you know what? This stuff is fantastic. It's been deployed by militaries all over the place for the past 5 or 6 years. So we literally had military grade technology sitting there. So it's like, how do we move this into, say, the private sector? So that's how we got into Korea, because our chairman, Andrew Yu, is from South Korea, and he has a lot of deep ties back there. So this, when we said, okay, let's move into the private sector, that became the low-hanging fruit. Because as you know, enterprise sales, it's about knowing and getting to the person that can pull the trigger. Going through the front door takes a long time. But with Andrew's background in South Korea, we were able to bypass a lot of that. So we converted everything into Korean. We went into the Korean market, and we were really successful with that, with millions of dollars of contracts with companies, like I said, Latte, multi-billion-dollar corporation. And now Latte has us as a preferred vendor. And this has led to a lot more doors opening in Korea. And, currently, because of the good work there and getting on that vendor list, we're now negotiating, much larger contracts over there. That's the plan. We're going to continue doing the work with the government and all that, moving it forward. We're going to continue expanding our footprint in the private sector. Next goal would be to, take the success we've had in the Korean markets, move it into the Canadian and American markets, and work out from there.
Got it. And I also have to ask, last week the company announced that Edward Choi has joined Datametrex. I believe he was at one of the companies that you named earlier when you were talking about your relationships with South Korea. So can you tell us a little bit about Edward and what he brings to Datametrex?
Absolutely. So it is just, I can't explain how fantastic and happy I am that Ed Choi has joined the team. So Ed was the vice president of cybersecurity at Latte, that corporation that we are a preferred vendor with, and they have given Ed the blessing to come onto our team now. So, this doesn't occur unless there's a great relationship between us and Latte and a tremendous upside for both of the companies. So, adding somebody of Ed's pedigree, I mean, he ran their cybersecurity division, and that's what we do. So it's just a no-brainer. A guy with that kind of pedigree and the background he has is going to give us the ability to open all kinds of doors over there. And it's also given us a lot of knowledge and insight, and the deep learning you only gain through decades of experience in the field. And now we're adding that to the team. So it's just a super exciting addition, and looking forward to what Ed can bring to the table, or what he's already brought to the table, and he's not even been here a week. And it's just amazing. So, like I said, super awesome pedigree, years and years of experience in the space, working for some of the biggest companies in Korea and on earth. And then Ed's coming to join Datametrex, and we're going to do great things together.
So then from what you can tell us, what would you say are some of the company's growth drivers now moving forward? You alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I figured we'd kind of bring it all home.
Sure. So the growth drivers right now, let's work on, the COVID stuff. That's definitively going to be a growth driver as we generate, revenues and profits from those sales. And as long as that's going on, we're going to continue to do it. And as long as, the government's asking us to help, we're going to continue to do it. So it's just like, a lot of the alcohol companies are now manufacturing like hand sanitizer and things like that. So, it's both a growth driver for us, and it's a good citizen thing to do, just to help people. I mean, we are in a pandemic, and we want to be, viewed as, not just viewed, but we want to do the right thing. So that's one. On the AI side, the growth drivers are the contracts with the government contracts, which are continuing to go on. We'll know more about those as budgets are finalized. These are annual things, like all the contracts with both, in Canada and the US are annual. Right now, the budgets are kind of up in the air as the pandemic rolls out. So both governments have put off the annual budget, and they're just doing packages at the moment. But it's our contracts, our current contracts in place with them continue to move. We are, like I said earlier, we're now bidding on a much higher level in the Canadian space. So that's going to be a huge growth driver for us, with the ability to reach much larger RFPs and bids there. And then lastly, we are working on some really great things in Korea and expanding that market. So, the model in Korea was land and expand, and it's working so far. We landed, we did one contract with Latte, and then they loved it. They issued 3 or 4 more with different subsidiary companies. I think Latte's got like 70 something subsidiaries underneath its belt. We did those, and those contracts have renewed and come up again and again. And now, we're on a preferred vendor list. Because we're on that list, and we've got people now like Ed Choi, we're able to branch out into other areas inside South Korea. So we're going to continue to branch out in South Korea. The last piece, and this is getting ready to come up very soon, is we're putting together a package on how to take that success we've had in South Korea, bring it back to the Canadian and American markets where we have traditionally only at Nexology, not Datametrex, but the sub company that we are focused on now, has traditionally only worked with the public sector. That's all they did. We're now taking that to the private sector. And if we can do anywhere near as well as we've done in South Korea, in Canada, and the US, it's going to look good.
All right. Well, with that, Marshall, where can my audience go and find more information about Datametrex?
Sure. So you can go on Globe and Newswire if you want to look at the press releases. They'll all be there. Yahoo, will also carry it. Or you could just go straight to our website. It's datametrex.com, and you can poke around there. A lot of the work we've done is available. A lot of the papers we've published there are available, including the work we did, on fake news in the 2019 federal election in Canada, and a lot of the work we did for the current U.S. administration on like Chinese propaganda detection. Both of those papers are available, so you can see what's going on the AI side. And then the press releases will tell you all you need to know about the COVID side.
All right. Well, Marshall, thank you again so much for joining us today. I really do appreciate it. Stay safe. Good luck. And I look forward to our next update.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. It was a pleasure being here.